A love unraveled. Mark walked through the quiet, tree-lined streets of Paris, the golden glow of the evening lights casting long shadows on the cobblestone. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh bread from a nearby boulangerie, mixing with the distant hum of the city. As he strolled, his thoughts drifted back to the life he had built alongside Camille. 35 years of marriage, a lifetime of memories, challenges, and triumphs. Now, as they approached their anniversary, they were preparing for a grand celebration of their love. Their children, Claire and Matt, who had long since built their own lives abroad, were returning home for the occasion. The thought filled Mark with pride and nostalgia. Life had not always been easy, but through every storm, he and Camille had weathered it together. At 60, Mark was still a striking figure, tall and broad-shouldered, his once dark hair now laced with silver, his sharp blue eyes carrying the wisdom of years spent in courtrooms. A respected lawyer, he had built a name for himself in Paris's legal circles, his reputation one of integrity and sharp intellect. He had provided well for his family, ensuring they never wanted for anything. Camille, at 58, had been the heart of their home. A devoted wife and mother, she had spent most of her life as a teacher before retiring a few years ago. Warm and nurturing, she had always been the soft counterbalance to Mark's more distant, work-driven nature. Together, they had built a life. A beautiful apartment overlooking the Seine, walls adorned with photographs from vacations along the French Riviera, framed memories of family gatherings, and keepsakes from their journey through life. The upcoming celebration was supposed to be another cherished addition to their collection of memories. Or so Mark believed. A discovery in the attic. Wanting to surprise Camille, he decided to relive the early days of their love. While she was out running errands, he ventured into the attic, hoping to find their old photo albums, love letters, and keepsakes from their youth. The attic was cluttered with boxes, mostly childhood belongings of Claire and Matt, but in the dim light, something unusual caught his eye. Tucked away in the far corner, nearly hidden beneath a worn linen sheet, sat a small wooden chest. It looked unfamiliar. Frowning, Mark crouched down and lifted the lid. Inside, he found a bundle of letters, worn with age, their edges yellowed, tied neatly with a ribbon. The handwriting on the envelopes was unmistakable. Yet it was not his. His heart began to pound. With trembling fingers, he untied the ribbon and unfolded the first letter. As his eyes scanned the words, a cold wave of realization washed over him. They were love letters. But not from him. A hidden betrayal. The letters were from Laurent. Mark's breath caught in his throat. Laurent, a man who had been a close family friend for years. Tall, charming, effortlessly charismatic. A banker with a silver tongue, always impeccably dressed, always polite and respectful at their dinner parties and gatherings. Mark had never once suspected him of being anything more than a trusted friend. But as he read, the truth unfolded before him with gut-wrenching clarity. Laurent's words dripped with passion and longing, painting a picture of stolen moments, whispered confessions, and secret meetings. The letters stretched across years. Years when Mark had been consumed by work, spending long nights at the office, traveling for business, leaving Camille alone for weeks at a time. He had always believed she understood, that she had accepted the sacrifices that came with his career. Now he realized how wrong he had been. The letters spoke of guilt and fear, of passion too strong to resist, of promises to end it, yet never quite doing so. Each word was a blade to Mark's heart, each confession a wound he had never known existed until now. His hands trembled as he let the letters slip back into the chest. He sat there, frozen in the attic's dim light, the weight of 35 years pressing down on him, suffocating him. Had everything been a lie? A silent storm. That evening, Camille returned home, arms full of groceries for the celebration. She greeted Mark with a warm smile, pressing a kiss to his cheek as she always did, oblivious to the storm brewing behind his eyes. He could not bring himself to meet her gaze. Every touch, every word, felt like a deception. Excusing himself, he claimed he needed some time alone. In truth, he needed to breathe, to make sense of the hurricane inside him. Over the next few days, he withdrew into silence. He couldn't bring himself to confront her. Nor could he share his agony with Claire or Matt. He felt trapped, alone in his torment, his mind spinning through memories of their marriage, searching for the signs he had missed. Had there been moments when Camille seemed distant, distracted? Had Laurent always lingered a little too long in their home? How many of those evenings had been stolen for him? And worst of all, had she ever truly loved Mark the way he had loved her? Oblivious to his turmoil, Camille continued eagerly preparing for their anniversary. She spoke excitedly of renewing their vows, of how deeply she still loved him after all these years. Each word was a dagger to his chest. The confrontation. On the eve of their anniversary, Mark could bear it no longer. That night, as the city lights twinkled beyond their window, he sat Camille down in the living room. His face was pale, his hands shaking as he placed the small wooden chest between them. She frowned in confusion. But as he slowly untied the ribbon and spread the letters before her, he saw the change. Her expression shifted. Her breath caught. Shame filled her eyes. "Mark," her voice was barely a whisper. "Please let me explain." He stared at her, his jaw clenched, his heart breaking with every second of silence that followed. "Explain what?" His voice was cold, raw with betrayal. "Explain how you could do this to me? How long, Camille? How long were you with him?" Tears welled in her eyes as she reached for his hand, but he pulled away, recoiling as if burned. "It was years ago," she said softly, guilt thick in her voice. "You were always working, always gone." Mark closed his eyes, swallowing the lump in his throat. It didn't matter how long ago it was. It didn't change the fact that it had happened. As the clock on the wall ticked on, marking the final moments before the anniversary they had spent a lifetime building toward, one question remained. Could he ever forgive her? Or had their love, so carefully built, so deeply cherished, been nothing more than an illusion all along? Mark felt like the ground beneath him had shattered, leaving him standing on the edge of something dark and uncertain. "I felt so alone, Mark," Camille whispered, her voice raw with emotion. "I didn't know how to talk to you about it. Laurent, he was there for me. He made me feel seen." She reached out, her fingers trembling. "But it's over. It ended a long time ago." Mark let out a sharp, bitter laugh, the word overtasting like poison in his mouth. "You expect me to believe that? To forget that you lied to me for years?" His voice trembled with anger, but beneath it was something else, something more fragile. Pain. Tears streamed down Camille's face. "I never meant to hurt you. I was weak, and I made a terrible mistake." Her breath hitched, desperation filling her eyes. "But I love you, Mark. I always have. Please, you have to believe that." He stood abruptly, pacing the room, hands running through his graying hair. "How can you say you love me after everything you've done?" His voice was hoarse, heavy with betrayal. "You shattered everything we built." Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Camille wept, shoulders shaking, while Mark stared at the woman he had shared a lifetime with, a woman who now felt like a stranger. The weight of it all was unbearable. "I need time," Mark whispered, his voice barely audible. "I can't do this right now." Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Camille sobbing on the couch. That night, he packed a small bag, his hands working mechanically, as if they belonged to someone else. He got into his car and drove through the quiet Paris streets, his heart pounding with every mile that put distance between him and the life that now felt like a lie. The summer home in Provence had always been a sanctuary, a place of peace nestled between rolling vineyards and fields of lavender. But now, as Mark arrived and stepped onto the old wooden porch, he felt no solace. The days passed in a blur. He wandered aimlessly through the countryside, breathing in the fresh air, listening to the rustling of the wind through the olive trees. But nothing could quiet the storm inside him. Every memory of Camille, every tender moment they had shared, now felt tainted by betrayal. At night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, questions swirling in his mind like ghosts that refused to rest. How could she have done this? Was it his fault? Had he been too absent, too consumed by his work? The more he reflected, the more he saw the cracks that had formed over the years. Their marriage had not been perfect. There had been moments of distance, of unspoken loneliness. He had been too wrapped up in his career, believing Camille would always be there, understanding, waiting. But none of that made what she had done any less devastating. A week passed. Camille reached out every day, her messages filled with apologies and pleas for him to come home. She told him she loved him, that she regretted everything. But Mark couldn't bring himself to respond. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and violet, Mark made a decision. He couldn't do this alone. He reached out to a therapist in a nearby village and scheduled a session. The first sessions were brutal. Speaking the words out loud made the betrayal feel fresh, as if he were reliving it all over again. But slowly, through guided conversations, he began to untangle his emotions. He voiced his anger, his sorrow, his confusion. He explored the years of neglect, both hers and his. His therapist helped him see the full picture. Camille had been wrong, but their marriage had been crumbling in ways he had never acknowledged. That realization didn't justify what she had done, but it helped him understand it. Weeks passed, and Mark found himself healing, little by little. The anger no longer consumed him, though the pain still lingered like an old wound. He realized that clinging to his resentment would only poison him further. He had a choice, to try to rebuild what was broken or to walk away and start anew. The decision weighed on him, but deep down he already knew the answer. One evening, he packed his bag again, this time to return to Paris. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew he couldn't avoid Camille forever. When he stepped into their apartment, the air felt different, heavier. Camille was waiting for him, standing near the window, her arms wrapped around herself. She looked exhausted, her face pale, her eyes red from sleepless nights and too many tears. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, her lips parting slightly, but she didn't move toward him. For a long moment, they simply stood there, the weight of everything unsaid pressing between them. "Mark," she finally whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. I don't know how to make this right, but I need you to know that I love you. I've always loved you." Mark sighed, running a hand over his face. He felt tired, not just in his body but in his soul. "I believe you, Camille," he said slowly. "But I don't know if love is enough anymore." Something in her broke at those words. Tears welled in her eyes again, but she nodded, as if she had already known. They talked for hours that night. About the past. About their mistakes. About the things they had both lost. In the end, Mark made the hardest decision of his life. He couldn't stay. The betrayal had cut too deep, and though forgiveness might one day come, the foundation of their marriage had been irreparably cracked. He no longer believed they could truly heal. But he didn't leave in anger. He thanked Camille for the years they had shared, for the love they had once known, for the family they had built. And though it hurt, they parted with understanding. Some love stories are not meant to last forever. Mark moved into a smaller apartment in the city, focusing on rebuilding his life, finding his own path forward. He continued therapy, working through the pain, learning to let go. And in time, he found peace, not because he forgot what had happened, but because he chose not to let it define him. As for Camille, she remained in their home, carrying the weight of her choices, but also learning how to move forward. Their relationship changed, no longer husband and wife, but something else, something built on mutual respect, if not love. The past could not be rewritten, but the future was still unwritten. And for the first time in a long time, Mark was ready to step into it.